I'm a self-promoter.
I'm a very good-looking guy. I'm an idol of some. I'm a brainless idiot. I'm your daddy. I'm a psychopath. I'm unstable. I'm a curmudgeon. I'm an animal. I'm a tyrant. I'm a physical peon. I'm a man. I'm incompetent with women. I'm one of the great Casanovas of all time. I'm a coward. I'm a nut job.
Welcome to Terminate Crashes Out, an NBA podcast with Justin Terminate. Brought to you by DC LA. And now it's time for Terminate to Crash Out.
All right, it's time to crash out. Now, hopefully we do not crash out like the Denver Nuggets just crashed out. And I guess I got to be a little quieter because I've got the neighbors next door. The hair is a mess, but the hair is not as messy as the Denver Nuggets. Their offense, their defense. That game was an absolute joke. The only reason that I stayed up and watched the fourth quarter, because you got to try and steal some sleep every now and again. The only reason that I stayed up and watched the fourth quarter is because I made the promise to you guys that I would sit here and do the show. Otherwise, I would have went to bed. I'm surprised that you guys are even up. Even if you're a Timberwolves fan, you could have went to bed about a half hour ago and saved yourself a little shut-eye for Friday. If you're a Denver fan, maybe you went to bed after the first quarter. That's what I would have done. That's what the Denver team did. And again, that was a flat-out embarrassment. They fall 113-96. I didn't expect Denver, when we got the news earlier today that Aaron Gordon was injured and wasn't going to play, I didn't expect him to win the game. I didn't expect him to win the series. I thought it was over at that point. But I also did not expect him to come out and give us the effort that he gave us here this evening, especially after Jaden McDaniels came out and said that they have no one that could defend. And then what did they do for 48 minutes? For 48 minutes, especially Jokic, proved Jaden McDaniels' comments to be 100% accurate. Nobody on that team could defend. Now, we also understand that there are 3+ defenders that Denver has on this roster, and that's due to the roster construction, whether you want to blame Calvin Booth, whether you want to get on John Wallace and Ben Tenzer, who just took over this past offseason, whether you want to throw that back on Tim Conley, who constructed this roster initially. There's only 3 guys that can defend. 2 of them weren't in the lineup tonight because of lower leg injuries. One is Peyton Watson. The other is Aaron Gordon. And then Bruce Brown's the one other guy that can defend. And Bruce Brown is not to the level of Aaron Gordon or Peyton Watson. But none of them showed up. It was a layup line. It's something that, should eat at their craw. I wonder what the next 2 nights are going to be like, is they got to sit there with that loss and get absolutely mocked. And one of the great players in the history of the sport, in Jokic, has to take all sorts of mocking over the course of the next couple of days, and people questioning his legacy and whether he's overrated and whether he's a legitimate MVP 3 times over and all that type of stuff. It's going to be absolutely humiliating for them. And again, they weren't just a joke on defense tonight. They were a joke offensively as well. I tweeted right after the first quarter, if you're following me on Twitter, at Termini Radio, at TERMINE Radio, I said, I think Jaden McDaniels meant all the Nuggets suck on offense, not defense. 11 points in the first quarter is utterly embarrassing. And I mean, that's the number 1 offense in the NBA for this season. And they had 11 points at the end of the first quarter. They had 39 points in the first half. And that's the best offense that we've had in the NBA all season long. That's one of the great offensive players, if not the greatest offensive player of all time, in Nikola Jokic. And yet Minnesota held him to 11 points in the first quarter. They held him to 39 in the first half, and ultimately 96 in the game, although a lot of those coming in garbage time, and essentially everything was garbage time after the first quarter. Because if you go back to game 2, right, Minnesota was down by 15, just to put it into context and how the numbers don't necessarily mean everything, because Minnesota was down by 15 in game 2, and they came all the way back to win. A couple of years ago, 2024, Minnesota was down by 20 points in Game 7 on the road. They came back to win, okay? But you knew after watching the first quarter, even though the 14 points, not as much as the 15 Minnesota was down at the end of the first quarter in game 2, not as much as Minnesota was down in game 7 a couple of years ago. You still knew this game was over. Denver, right off the bat, did not come to play, and you could see it in their body language. I don't know if it's something where they don't think they can beat this team. I don't know if it's something where the Aaron Gordon news caught them by surprise, and they're having trouble stomaching it and rationalizing what they had to do. And again, I'm the biggest Jokic fan that there is. I voted for him MVP again this year. I have voted for Jokic 5 times. He's won the award 3 times. If he didn't kind of mail it in 2023, the year that Embiid won the award, I would have voted for him then as well. I already think he is one of the 10 greatest players in the history of the sport. I already think he is arguably the greatest offensive player in the history of the sport. So I am as high on Jokic as anybody. And tonight, he was horrible. Horrible offensively, horribly defensively, and especially when you would think that he would want to send a message that Rudy Gobert can't defend me, because now there's talk out there that, hey, Rudy's got his number. And no all-time great likes when somebody says, oh, this guy has his number. You know, you're telling Kobe Bryant, I don't know, Raja Bell has your number. Well, Kobe's going to want to put on a performance against you. You're telling, Michael Jordan, hey, Gary Payton can stop you. Larry Bird, hey, Michael Cooper has your number. Those guys are going to be pissed off. Those guys are going to put a crooked number up on the board. Those guys are going to play with a chip on their shoulder. And Jokic didn't do that. Now, he came out aggressively looking for a shot. I think he was 0 of 6 within the first 2 minutes. So he was aggressive. It just didn't pan out. And I don't know whether the touch is gone. The three-point shot has been gone for a while, ever since he got back from the injury, essentially. I mean, I got on SGA's case the other day because SGA shot 5 of 18, and I said, well, Jokic never does that, even when Jokic stinks, even when Jokic, isn't on top of his game. Jokic not going 5 of 18. Well, Jokic actually did worse tonight. Jokic went 7 of 26. You make a case that's the worst game Jokic has ever played. Now, the difference between SGA and Jokic is OKC can still win if SGA gives you a stinker. In fact, they won the other day when SGA gave you that stinker, 5 of 18. They won by 35 points. So they can, and that's been my argument this entire 2-year stretch with SGA winning the MVPs, is he can have a stinker and they're still not going to miss a beat. Jokic has a stinker. The team relies on him too much. And tonight he had a stinker, and the team had one of the worst losses that we've seen from this iteration of the Denver Nuggets. That's the difference. And whether you want to pin the blame on Jokic or not, and I'm not talking about just this year, I'm talking about the last couple, right? It's not a good look for 3 consecutive years after you win the championship to lose in the second round by losing a game 7 at home, then lose again in the second round the following year, even though we know what happened last year. They went up against Oklahoma City and they were completely banged up. But still, it's on the resume. People don't understand context. Like I always say with the Kevin Durant championships, everybody knows Kevin Durant took an easy road to the title. But 50 years from now, you understand, you guys understand, you run into dummies all day long. You run into idiots all day long. You're on social media, you're on Twitter. How many stupid people are out there? There's a bunch of them. So people don't necessarily look at context. They're like, oh, well, KD won 2 championships, right? And that's the same thing it'll be with Jokic. It's like, all right, you lost in the second round. You lost in the second round. You lost in the first round this year. Context isn't going to matter. What's going to show up on the resume is you've lost 3 consecutive years without getting out of the second round, and that is not going to look good on his resume, and he's going to have to deal with it. And let's see how he bounces back in Game 4 knowing that. Now, again, I don't think anybody should expect them to win the series. They're the worst of the 2 teams, especially with the injuries to Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson. They're just not as good as Minnesota. They shouldn't win the series. They should be the underdogs. I thought they would lose tonight. Maybe even with Aaron Gordon, but definitely without Aaron Gordon. But they can't just check out. They can't just be, hey, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. And, maybe some of the guys can. Maybe Cam Johnson can. Maybe Bruce Brown can. Maybe even Jamal Murray can. But Jokic can't. Because, Jokic is playing for his legacy. The other guys are playing, hey, it'd be nice if we won. They're not playing for like a legacy. They're not playing for how they're going to be remembered in history books. They're not chasing ghosts. Jokic is doing that. So he's got to come out and give you a much better effort in game 4, in game 5, and at least go down swinging. Don't go down, rolling over. Don't go down where people are going to question whether you quit or not. But tonight was one of the worst performances of his career. And believe me, he's going to take crap for it over the course of the next couple of days and over the course of the entire summer if this continues for 2 more games and they get eliminated. And, as far as Aaron Gordon is concerned, let's address that aspect. Then we can touch on some Minnesota stuff. And then we definitely have to get into the Knicks loss to the Hawks, which still might be and probably is the lead tomorrow because that was a great game. This last one absolutely stunk. But as far as Aaron Gordon is concerned, I love the guy. Full disclosure, I don't know how many of you out there have listened to me for years on Sirius XM, but I hosted a show called Year One with Aaron Gordon, and I got to know him really well and still know him. And I think he's an amazing player. He's a great defender. He's clutch. He's the perfect fit next to Jokic. I love the guy personally because of the relationship I was able to build with him. Great personality. But at some point, I don't think you can keep Aaron Gordon on this roster if you want to win again with Jokic. You just can't count on him to stay healthy. All regular season, he's unhealthy. That probably cost Jokic in a way the MVP in addition to the injury because he's so vital to them. Like, I think he's the second most important nugget behind Jokic. Now, Jamal Murray might be better, and as good as the chemistry is between Jokic and Aaron Gordon, I think it's even better between Jokic and, as good as it might be between Murray and Jokic, I think it's even better between Gordon and Jokic. And then defensively, Gordon brings something that nobody else on the team can bring. But if you can't rely on him to be out there, then I don't see how you could keep him and feel comfortable going into the postseason every single year. If it's like, hey, he might not be healthy. Or, you go into a postseason. I knew he wasn't going to be healthy throughout this entire run. I was hoping it would last longer than this. But every couple of weeks, it's the hamstring, it's the calf, it's a lower body injury. Just sometimes that stuff you just never recover from. Take a look at Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson's not in the Hall of Fame. Only reason is because the hamstrings gave way. And that's where we sit here with Aaron Gordon. You can't rely on him. You can't keep him. And really, this run for Jokic in Denver, I understand they still have to lose 2 more games before they are eliminated. But it's come to an end. Even if he stays, they just are not going to be able to win another championship. The Thunder are just better, and they're not going anywhere. They're young. They have a ton of assets. I mean, they got a 7% chance at, I think, a top 4 pick this upcoming year. So they're not going anywhere. And then you look at San Antonio. San Antonio's only going to get better. The Lakers eventually are going to figure out the supporting cast around Luka. So they're going to get their act together. The Wolves don't seem like they're going anywhere. And if Tim Conley stays, they have a very intelligent executive who Denver should have paid and never gotten rid of. That's going to continue to construct a team around Anthony Edwards that's going to be difficult to beat. And, so that's the Denver thing. And the Denver is the story. I'm sorry for the Minnesota fan that tuned in. Denver is the story here. Denver's the issue. And I could already tell today's YouTube show is going to go very long compared to the other couple of days because we have not even hit on the Knicks yet. We haven't even hit on Toronto and Cleveland. We'll wrap it at the end with Toronto and Cleveland. But a couple of things on Minnesota before we move on to this Knicks debacle. They've now won 2 straight games where Anthony Edwards hasn't even played well. So that's huge. And I hope it's not a knee issue because I'd like to see Anthony Edwards, if they win this series, be able to go up head-to-head with SGA next round. But they've now won 2 consecutive games. Anthony Edwards hasn't even had to be great. Rudy Gobert has been amazing. The job he has done on Jokic has been epic. He's done it before. We saw it in Game 7 a couple of years ago. Hopefully this gets Rudy Gobert the credit Rudy Gobert deserves. credit I've been giving Rudy Gobert for years as a voter who has voted for Rudy Gobert 5 times. He's won 4 Defensive Player of the Years. I have voted for him to win that award 5 times. And I also voted for him top 3 this year, even though he didn't finish in the top 3. He wasn't a finalist. So I understand his greatness. And now hopefully this is making other people around the league understand his greatness. As somebody just put in the chat here, that's 2 consecutive games where he's outplayed Jokic, and that is correct. And that belongs, as much as this hurts Jokic's resume, this should help Rudy Gobert's resume. He was great. And then again, go back to Tim Connelly, who constructed the Nuggets, right? Drafted Jokic, drafted Jamal Murray, traded for Aaron Gordon, hired Michael Malone. He is a great executive. And, not only did he construct this team, but he made moves at the deadline like Ayo Dosunmu. 25 points, 10 of 15. What a pickup by Tim Connelly at the trade deadline. That might win them this series and give them a puncher's chance. Even though I think they would get killed by OKC, a puncher's chance at beating him. Guy can score, clearly as you saw tonight. Guy fits in with everybody else and that the entire team can defend. So, that's the Minnesota take there. Minnesota is going to win this series. The only question is, does Denver show any fight on the way to doing so? And if Minnesota wins, get ready for, 2 or 3 weeks of Chris Finch complaining about SGA and complaining about the OKC whistle. Because everybody complains about that, but nobody complains about it as much as Chris Finch. All right, so that is Nuggets Timberwolves. I spent more effort and time talking about that game than the Nuggets put into it. Absolutely humiliating, absolutely disappointing. And now at least the Knicks showed a fight, but ultimately the result is the same. And let's start here. And again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. We just got done ripping the Nuggets, ripping the Jokic performance, ripping the effort, and giving a bunch of credit to Minnesota, who deserves it. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see your comments here. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff on YouTube. We're going to do this nightly throughout the postseason, at least Monday through Thursday. I will try and get some in on Friday nights, Saturday, and Sunday, but we'll do this at least 4 nights a week. I appreciate everybody who is joining. So back in January, James Dolan, in an interview on WFAN radio in New York, had the following comments, okay? He said, the Knicks absolutely have to reach the NBA Finals and should win the championship. Those are the words of the owner of the New York Knicks, James Dolan. Well, where do we sit right now? We're in the first round. New York is down 2-1 in their series against the Atlanta Hawks after a 109-108 loss in Atlanta. And now they are 2 losses away. Think of that. They are 2 losses away from losing in the first round when their owner said they had to. And again, unlike Denver, who's got a couple of injuries, unlike, say, the Rockets, who if they lose, all right, well, there's a couple of injuries. There's no injuries for New York. The Knicks are healthy, and they're on the precipice of losing. And you know what this means. The Knicks are 2 losses away from Mike Brown taking a lot of crap. They are 2 losses away from people once again claiming you can't win a championship with Jalen Brunson, right? The Becky Hammond comments. He's too small. He can't defend, which has been the case in this series. CJ McCollum is eating his lunch. We are 2 Knicks losses away from people ripping a combination of Leon Rose and Mikal Bridges for spending 5 first-round picks on him, and we will get to Mikal Bridges in a second, who was benched down the stretch of this game in embarrassing fashion. We are 2 losses away for the Knicks from people ripping James Dolan for firing Tom Thibodeau. And we're 2 losses away, I'm sure, from Tom Thibodeau popping a couple of bottles of champagne, okay? We are 2 losses away from the Knicks potentially having to blow things up this offseason, including Karl Anthony Towns, who should want out because he's a max-level player. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He is a all-NBA type of player. And, once again, he's taken 12 shots tonight. And to me, they were at their best and made their comeback when he got super aggressive. So anyway, we are 2 losses away from all that happening. Now, it's not over yet, and I guess I would still favor the Knicks, but boy, they are in a lot of trouble, and they are nervous. Like Mike Brown said that his team was not tight prior to the game tonight. They're going to be tight now. Like, they're going to feel it heading into game 4, back up against the wall, potentially embarrassed in the first round. They will feel it being tight in game 4. They will feel the butterflies. And, before we get to the Knicks, and again, I just spent a lot of time there on the Knicks, but how awesome was that for Jonathan Kuminga? How good do you feel for Jonathan Kuminga? Here's a guy that spent, 4 years in Golden State, was constantly glued to the bench, had to deal with his head coach constantly taking shots at him through the media. He's not a winning player, all that, alluding to that stuff. He can't fit into this offense. He doesn't play winning basketball. That is 2 consecutive great games from Kuminga in the playoffs against a team with legitimate title hopes. He's not having 2 great games in the first round against a 7th or 8th seed. The Knicks are supposed to go to the finals. And Kuminga was arguably the best player on the floor tonight and has 2 consecutive great games. Game 2, 19 points, 7 of 12 from the field. Tonight in Game 3, 21 points, 9 of 14, including a bunch of ones late, and a couple of key rebounds. Very aggressive defensively. Quinn Snyder trusted him on the floor at the end of the game instead of Dyson Daniels. So not only has he been putting up huge numbers, he's been efficient, he's been under control, he's 23 years of age, and he continues to play like this on the national stage with everybody watching. That makes Golden State look a lot worse for what they did and how they handled him. You can't develop this kid who's capable of doing stuff like this at the age of 23 and is doing it efficiently and has this type of athleticism. You're nuts. For Kristaps Porzingis, who's an expiring contract, who's older than Kuminga, significantly older, who's battling all sorts of health issues throughout the course of his career. And Kuminga's capable of doing stuff like we've seen the last 2 games. Golden State's not playing anymore. They picked up another couple of losses in Game 2 and Game 3 of this Hawks and Knicks series. And in regards to C.J. McCollum, he's definitely been the best player on the floor in this series. You might make the argument he's been the best player in the postseason so far. That's how good C.J. McCollum has been. And again, I understand we are only through, a couple of games here. But he's been the best player, arguably, in the entire postseason, not just this series. I'm not sure that Trae Young is, and I know Trae Young has gotten to a conference finals before, but I'm not sure Trae Young has had a series like this, where he's looked as good and is under control, getting people involved, putting up his own numbers, being great in the clutch, big shot after big shot. I'm not sure Trae Young has had a start to a postseason like this or a series like this. And, CJ has been awesome overall. He's been even better in the clutch. At the deadline, right? At the deadline, CJ was viewed as a throw-in. He's an expiring contract. We're just getting rid of Trae Young. That's the only reason we're making this deal. He'll be a free agent in the offseason. We might not even bring him back. He's 34 years old. He was treated as an expiring contract at the deadline. And right now, he's been the best player in the postseason, arguably. And he's been a Hawks playoff hero and a New York City villain. Imagine the feeling that guy must have after playing useless basketball in New Orleans and Washington the last couple of years. And now he gets thrown on to center stage where he's a playoff hero. He's hitting big shots. He's getting booed in New York City. They're chanting bleep CJ. I think he's got to be on top of the world right now. As a matter of fact, he's another guy like Aaron Gordon that I did work with a couple of years ago, so I feel very good for him. It was a short-lived show, but I hosted one with Aaron Gordon, one with C.J. McCollum, one with Stanley Johnson, who was very lazy, and you could tell by working with Stanley Johnson that his career would be short-lived in the NBA, and it was, because he had zero work ethic. And then Frank Kaminsky, who's another great guy, and he's doing very well for himself. But I feel so happy for CJ. But at the deadline, he was treated as a salary dump. Now look what he's doing. And Heading into this series, what did I say? If you listen to this show, if you're listening to my show on Sirius XM NBA Radio, I said heading into the series, I thought Atlanta's biggest issue would be late game offense in a close game. But so far, CJ's been the best player. Like I said, New York is so comfortable in a close game. Jalen Brunson, I voted for third on Clutch Player of the Year. Last year, I voted for him first. He won the award. I don't think Jalen Brunson's one of the 5 best players. I don't even think he's one of the 10 best players, probably. But he is one of the 5 guys I want the ball in the hands of down the stretch of a close game. And so far in this series, he has not been the best player in those situations. He's getting out-Brunsoned by C.J. McCollum, who's been brilliant and hitting big shots after big shots, including the shot tonight with 12.5 seconds left over Deuce McBride. And speaking of that final shot from CJ, Deuce McBride is a plus defender. That's why he was on the floor. That's why Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson were off the floor. But here's another thing to get on Mike Brown's case on, and I'm sure the Knicks fans looking for a bunch of them, is why is McBride on CJ McCollum? And again, I think McBride is a good defender. He's not OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby is going to finish first or second team all defense this year. He's going to get a lot of votes. He's not Josh Hart, who's done a great job on Nickeil Alexander-Walker throughout the course of this series. And then they switched him onto CJ for a little while and kind of stymied CJ in the second half. But you got OG Anunoby on the floor. You got Josh Hart. You got Mikal Bridges, who was benched in the second half but came out for that final possession just to play defense. And none of those 3 guys are on CJ McCollum. You knew where the ball was going. They weren't throwing the ball to anybody other than C.J. McCollum. And you got McBride on him instead of one of those 3 guys who's a little bit smaller as well, so he's able to shoot over top of him. And he knocks down the shot. So, head scratching there from Mike Brown. Not the only thing that he did was head scratching. And here's the other thing. I know this didn't cost New York the game, but what the hell are you doing? You eventually made the comeback, but why the heck is Mike Brown sitting once again after this backfired last game at the start of the fourth quarter? Why are you down nearly double digits, your season on the brink of being in massive trouble, and you're sitting both Towns and Brunson at the same time? What other team does that? They don't sit Jokic and Murray at the same time. They don't sit Tatum and Brown at the same time. Why are you sitting these 2 guys at the same time? That doesn't make any sense with your season on the line. That's the bit, and they only sat for 2.5 minutes. But I just don't get that. And I was laughing about it when I saw this unfolding, especially when I saw people complaining on social media. And this is how fans can be sometimes. And you guys know this. You're probably self-aware. I mean, even if I'm rooting for Jokic, I'm rooting for the Celtics. Sometimes I can be delusional at times. But you have the fans complaining about Thibodeau. Well, Thibodeau plays the guys too much. We need a coach that's going to play the bench. He's running the starters thin. And then the fans today are complaining, oh, why isn't Brunson in the game? Why isn't Towns in the game? Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it, Tom Thibodeau plays the guys too much, but Mike Brown doesn't play the guys enough. I mean, that's what you're doing. You think Tom Thibodeau is starting the fourth quarter of that game tonight? Season on the line? And he's going, you know what? Let's throw a lineup out there without Brunson and Towns. No, he's probably playing those guys each 45 minutes. He's playing them the whole game. And that's what I would prefer compared to having my 2 best players on the bench at the same time with our season on the line in the fourth quarter on the road. So, that was comical. And here's the other, I guess, bad sign for the Knicks. And it has to do with Atlanta and what's coming around the corner. And that's that Jalen Johnson finally broke out tonight. CJ's been great all series. Kuminga's been great the last 2 games. But Jalen Johnson had not been good until tonight. And he was fantastic tonight. But that's the concerning part. The Knicks are down 2-1 right now. Atlanta just got their first good game from Jalen Johnson. He's one of the better players in the league. I voted for him second team All-NBA. But they've yet to get anything from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the regular season averaged over 20 points per game, shot 40% from 3. So far in this series, game 1, 17.6 of 17. Game 2, 9 points, 3 of 12. Game 4, 14 points, or game 3, I should say, which was earlier tonight, 14 points on 4 of 12. He's giving you 3 stinkers. Now, he did hit a couple of big shots late. Game 2, he had that steal late, right, that set up the game-winning shot. So he's done some small things, and he's been great defensively on Brunson and others throughout the course of this series. So he's done a lot of good things. But he hasn't showed up offensively. And this is a guy that was, dropping 30 points every couple of games during the regular season, including 36 against the Knicks in the last regular season game of the season that they played each other. So he hasn't showed up. What happens if all of a sudden he gives you a 30-piece? Right? If he comes to the party offensively. If you had told me at the beginning of the series, this is what Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to do through 3 games, I'm going to tell you that the Knicks, are up 2-1 or up 3-0. Same with Jalen Johnson. But CJ's been amazing. Kuminga, all series. Kuminga's been great the last 2 games. Jalen Johnson was good tonight. And we'll see what we get from Nickeil Alexander-Walker moving forward. But at some point, you would think he's too good. He's going to give you at least 1 game. And if he gives you that, there's another win for the Hawks. And then just to, wrap up the Knicks-Hawks conversation, or go back to the Knicks, a couple of questions for the Knicks or about the Knicks. One, where the hell was Mikal Bridges? And I understand, I asked that rhetorically. I know the answer to where the hell was Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges was on the bench because that's where he should have been. I mean, scoreless in 21 minutes, 1 rebound, 21 minutes, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, and had to be benched for most of the second half and basically the entirety of the fourth quarter for Deuce McBride. This is a guy that New York gave up not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 first-round picks. As you know, because people talk about it nonstop, and guess what? They're going to talk about it all day tomorrow. So not only did they give up 5 first-round picks, which they could have used to get a guy like Giannis, but they also gave him a 4-year extension worth $150 million just this past offseason. With the new, even if they want to deal Mikal Bridges, you think you can deal that contract this day and age with these new aprons? No, you can't. And he took a slight discount, I guess. That's how it was, painted. Oh, Brunson took one, Mikal Bridges will take one. That's not a discount when you're playing like Mikal Bridges. That's an albatross. That's an albatross. And, the funny part about it is, here's a guy that last year, what did he do with Tom Thibodeau? This is the beginning of the end for Tom Thibodeau. Mikal Bridges came out, he said, I'm playing too much. What athlete do you ever hear complaining about too many minutes? So he complains last year he's playing too many minutes. And then this year he's benched. Maybe be careful what you wish for. You think Mikal Bridges, who was complaining about Tom Thibodeau playing him too many minutes, wouldn't love to have Tom Thibodeau back playing him 40-plus minutes tonight because he got benched. One coach trusted you so much, he played you apparently too much. The other coach trusts you so little, a year later, he benches you. And that's not I'm sure that's not an easy decision because you can't just bench a guy that you gave up 5 first-round picks for and you gave $150 million contract extension to, because that makes the executives that brought you in look like idiots. And that's what they look like today. They look like idiots for bringing in Mikal Bridges. And even if he recovers, moving forward in this series or, next series, what about the impact on his confidence? You think he's feeling good about himself right now? Or you think he's looking over his shoulder? So the Mikal Bridges thing is an absolute disaster, even if you win this series. Even if the rest of the team picks up the slack, you beat Atlanta, you're not beating Boston or Cleveland or Detroit or, winning a championship with this version of Mikal Bridges, and maybe you'll lose his mindset based off you benching him. So the Knicks right now are a mess. Game 4 is going to be super interesting because, like I said, Mike Brown said that the team wasn't tight heading into this one. They're going to be tight heading into Game 4 because they know they lose that game. Again, changes are coming. Embarrassment is coming. So they'll be tight heading into game 4. Hopefully they can fight through it. All right, so that's us crushing the Nuggets. It's us crushing Jokic. It's us crushing the Knicks. It's us crushing Brunson or Towns or Mikal Bridges, whoever the hell you can crush them all outside of maybe OG Anunoby. Anunoby was great. Everybody else stunk. But those are the two teams that, again, 2-3 seeds that are now down 2-1. We thought both of those series could be upsets, or we thought one of them could be, right? Now we might have two upsets in the first round. Although I would anticipate the Knicks better shot of coming back than Denver if Denver's going to be without Aaron Gordon here moving forward. Now we got another 2-1 series, but this one in the direction where you expected it to go. And the Raptors finally got a win to make it 2-1. Series lead still belongs to Cleveland. It was up 2-0 heading into this one. So they blow them out 126-104. That's in Toronto. Really, it comes down to the three-point line. Cleveland shot 14 of 45 from 3. Toronto shot 14 of 23. And again, I'll just tell you how I consumed this game. I did it on the second screen, volume off. Knicks, Hawks had screen 1, and then we switched over to Denver and Minnesota. So no volume as I'm watching this thing. But really, it was the three-point line. Cleveland shot 14 of 45 from 3. Toronto shot 14 of 23. Think about that. Toronto made the same amount of threes as Cleveland, despite taking 22 less threes. So that right there is your ball game. And, credit to Scotty Barnes. He was great offensively, as was R.J. Barrett. Barnes, really good series. 33 points, 11 of 17 tonight. Barrett, 33 points to match it, 12 of 19. Those guys have looked offensively a lot better than I thought they would. Colin Murray's Boyles, once again, great. He's a rookie. That's got to make you feel really good coming off the bench to get that from him, and he's been great in 2 consecutive games. 22 points, 11 of 15 off the bench tonight. He can really play. So you nailed that pick. And you've picked up the slack here for Brandon Ingram, who hasn't been great. Now, I still don't think Cleveland is any trouble. I still think Toronto is the worst team in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I picked Cleveland to win the season series, or this series in 5. So, nothing happened tonight that's unexpected, right? Nothing happened tonight that's unexpected because I expected Toronto to win one game. Typically, the one game that you'll win is the first home game back. And that's what they did. So I don't think Cleveland is in any trouble here. So if everything remains status quo, it's nice that the Raptors got a playoff win, that they extended the series. They made game 4 a little bit interesting. The fans can get riled up here a little bit, but Cleveland's going to win this one. I don't know who's going to win the Knicks-Hawks one. I feel like Minnesota's going to win Minnesota-Denver. Cleveland's beating Toronto, unless something crazy happens from an injury perspective. Although I will say this from Cleveland's perspective. It's a concern that, deeper in the postseason, because I don't like their defense. And if Scotty Barnes and R.J. Barrett and Colin Murray Boyles are lighting you up, and they have been the last couple of games, it's going to be even more difficult moving forward when the competition gets a little bit better. All right, let me look through some of these comments now. Maybe I can respond to a few as we look at them, and that's how we'll wrap things up here tonight. I got somebody saying that Quinn Snyder is a top 5 coach in all of pro sports. I don't know about that. Done a nice job here. The difference is he's let Kuminga, and another person saying Quinn Snyder deserves a lot of credit as well. Absolutely, 100%. Especially with the Kuminga thing, right? Because one of the issues with Steve Kerr is Kuminga was always looking over his shoulder. Well, what you have with Quinn Snyder is he's let him make mistakes. He's not looking over his shoulder. And we got another person here saying, Daniel is saying, Warriors needed athleticism, and seeing Kuminga do that makes me wonder what's going on in Golden State. You're 100% right. I said that the entire time, that one of the reasons that made it weird with Kuminga is he did something that they didn't have. Steph Curry is older, Jimmy Butler is older, Draymond is older, Al Horford is older. What they needed was an explosive body. Kuminga is an explosive body. And yeah, somebody else says Steve Kerr should be ashamed. I'm sure that he's, watching this and has to be asked about it. It looks like he is going to transition into being a media member next year. How about the first time he's got to call a game for Kuminga, and he's got to break down Kuminga's game? All right, so I appreciate everybody for chiming in. I'll go back and look at the rest of the comments here later on. 3 games here tomorrow night. Celtics Sixers. That series tied at 1. Embiid has been upgraded to doubtful. I don't think that he's going to play. Forget tomorrow. I don't think he's going to play in the series. Maybe there's a little bit of gamesmanship. Maybe he comes back. Hopefully he does come back. Make it a little bit more interesting. I don't think he is. I'm still confident the Celtics win the series, although the Derek White shooting woes are a concern this series and certainly long term, because you're not going to win if he continues to play like that. And then the other concern is this is a bad matchup for Boston, and if they don't handle quick guards well, and VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey are as quick as it gets in the NBA. Then you got game 3 between the Lakers and the Rockets. 2-0 there. The Lakers with the lead. Austin Reeves questionable. That's a good sign. Like, Embiid's doubtful. Austin Reeves is questionable a lot sooner than we anticipated him coming back. Be nice to get some reps this series against basically an exhibition team, a G League team in Houston, prior to then advancing to the next round where you're going to have to take on Oklahoma City. Durant is questionable in this one with an ankle. It's hysterical. Durant plays 78 of 82 games in the regular season. He plays the second most minutes behind only his teammate Amen Thompson. We get to the postseason. He misses game 1 because of a knee contusion, and now he's questionable for game 3 with the ankle. So that series is a disaster. I understand. I think even the ratings have been the best for that one. That's the one outside of Toronto and Cleveland that's got me the least interested. Plus, it's just bad basketball. The offense is horrific. And then finally, you got Spurs Blazers. That one basically comes down to Wembanyama. He's questionable. He's making a trip. So that's the good sign. Will he play or not? Hopefully he does. All right, so that is the program. I appreciate everybody for stopping by. We'll do some of those story time things at some point in the future. I know I had wrapped up different shows, just not the time or place for it during the post-game show. Plus, it's 42 minutes in, I got to get to bed. Typically, I've just been doing these for a half hour, but there was a lot to talk about here today. If you have any ideas, by the way, as to things you want to see on the show, I'm just brainstorming, like, how am I going to approach it? Right now, it's post-game shows. We get a little bit into the off-season. I'll do some Legends interviews, some long-form Legend interviews. I plan on doing some trivia and giving some stuff away. I'm just a novice when it comes to using the technology, so that stuff needs to be investigated. But you can leave in the comments, maybe on the YouTube page, some stuff like programming type of stuff that you guys would be interested in seeing happen. But I appreciate the growing audience that's continuing to join me for these shows. It was hard work day 1 to stay up this late. Hasn't been as hard the last couple of days. I find it quite therapeutic. So thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we'll talk to you tomorrow with Eddie, 4 to 7 Eastern time on NBA Radio, NBA Today. We'll talk then. Give us a call at that point at 855-NBA-JUMP. Thanks to Deepak for sponsoring the program with all his great suits out there at DCLA. Visit him on the website at BuyDCLA and tell him that I sent you. And somebody says, put Zuzu on camera. Zuzu's asleep. Zuzu thinks I'm nuts. She was used to going to bed at like 9 o'clock, and now here I am at 1 a.m. Eastern time ranting and raving. All right, guys. Appreciate it, guys and gals. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the show. Again, we'll break it down more extensively tomorrow with Eddie on NBA Radio. Take care and have a good night.